These are your fast facts on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. First, Paul may have had help in writing 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. As with most of Paul's letters, Paul was surrounded by a team of collaborators and scribes to help him assemble the text as we have it. As one who believes in the work of inspiration, I would assert that the entire process was under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. The result of this process is that Paul's collaborators on each book may have slightly shaped the vocabulary and style in each effort, resulting in a bit of fuzziness when it comes to what we may assume to be a true Pauline style or Pauline vocabulary. This makes claims against the authenticity of other epistles in the Pauline corpus all the more tenuous when their arguments rest on matters of style or vocabulary. Second, some think 1 Thessalonians 2:13-16 was inserted into the text at a later date. These verses seem a bit of an interruption of thought in the chapter, but Paul frequently interrupts himself to make particular points in his epistles. Further, these verses are included at this point in all of our extant manuscripts. Third, although 1 Thessalonians is accepted, many scholars reject 2 Thessalonians as authored by Paul. Some see 2 Thessalonians as too similar to 1 Thessalonians. Others see it as too different from 1 Thessalonians. The reality is that 2 Thessalonians is both similar to and different from 1 Thessalonians. They are similar because they share the same author and are in close temporal proximity to each other. They are different because they address an ever-evolving situation in the church. Fourth, the timing and order of these two epistles is helpful to establish. The church at Thessalonica was established rapidly, according to Acts 17:1-9. At that time, Paul and Silas had to escape the city and flee to Berea, according to verse 10. Splitting up with Silas and Timothy, Paul pushed on to Athens and awaited news about the church of Thessalonica from his colleagues, according to Acts 17:15 and following. He didn't get any update until he arrived in Corinth in Acts 18:5. According to 1 Thessalonians 3:6, it was at this moment that Paul penned the letter and posted it to Thessalonica. 2 Thessalonians 2:15 implies that Paul wrote that letter sometime shortly thereafter. Fifth, both of these epistles address the doctrine of end times. A substantial percentage of both letters' contents relate to the doctrine of eschatology, or last things. Instead of providing the Christians in Thessalonica with a map of the events of the end of days, Paul provides them with hope that Christians who have died will rise in the last day, and an encouragement not to believe that they are presently living in the new heavens and the new earth. Sixth, Thessalonica was a wealthy city. The city was not only situated on a major trade route, but it also benefited from its status as a significant seaport. The result was a substantial degree of wealth and stratification in their society, as well as a major temple cult that undergirded their drive for prosperity. Seventh, the Thessalonian epistles provide a God-centered orientation. The amount of times that Paul refers to God, Jesus, Christ, and Lord is substantial when you compare it with the relative brevity of these books. Paul is working overtime to point this congregation away from their fears and speculations and toward God, whom he first proclaimed to them during his short stint in the city. Eighth, Paul's visit to Thessalonica is well attested. In Acts 17:6, Luke uses a very specific word when he talks about the rulers of the city, the politarchs. This word is so rare that for decades liberal scholars assumed that the word was made up by Luke and reflected a supposed inaccuracy regarding Paul's journeys. But in recent decades, numerous inscriptions have been found in the region attesting to the office of politarch, suggesting both the legitimacy of Luke's account and of Paul's visit to the city. Ninth, was Paul an anti-Semite? 1 Thessalonians 2:15 seems to pin the death of Jesus on, quote, the Jews. But Paul, a Jewish man, is not disparaging the Jewish people as a whole, but a subset who killed Jesus and the prophets before him. Paul is pointing out that throughout his shared ethnic heritage with the Jewish people in Thessalonica, significant segments of them had exhibited godless behaviors. 10th, do we enter soul sleep on death, or are we ushered into the presence of Jesus? In 1 Thessalonians 4:14, Paul writes that Jesus will one day resurrect all those who have fallen asleep. Now, does this contradict the claim in 2 Corinthians 5:8 that our soul leaves the body and is present immediately with the Lord? It seems best to maintain the spiritual reality of 2 Corinthians 5:8, but that 1 Thessalonians is referring to how the body appears from a physical standpoint, asleep, until it is resurrected and transformed. 11th, who is the man of lawlessness and the one who restrains? 2 Thessalonians 2 includes some of the most challenging and confusing verses about the last times outside of the book of Revelation. While some have tried to identify aspects of these forces or individuals with the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, or others, no clear case can be made at this time. Ultimately, Paul and his readers were mutually aware of what was being discussed. Our takeaway should be that God alone is sovereign over the rise and fall of even his most violent and evil opponents in this world prior to the return of Jesus. And those are your fast facts on the books of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians.